All right, let's do it. Welcome back, everybody, to episode 6, I think, of the Rozay audio experience. Today we have Director of Mobile Gaming at Complexity, MobileMatt, Matt Rutledge. Feel free to introduce yourself.
I am MobileMatt. I'm Director of Mobile Gaming at Complexity. Thanks for having me on, Rozay.
Nailed it. Sweet. All right, so Director of Mobile Gaming Complexity. Yeah. What does that mean?
So basically, I recruit and manage the competitive teams in the mobile division for Complexity. Also manage our content creators here on the mobile side, and always looking out for just really creative mobile initiatives that we can get involved in as an organization to help push the games that we're involved in forward, and just be a really endemic presence here in mobile esports.
Gotcha. So what teams does Complexity have? You got Clash Royale. What else is going on?
Yep, Clash Royale and Fortnite Mobile right now, and really happy with where we are in both of those titles. What we've been able to do on the Fortnite Mobile side, which some of the viewers may not really know about, assuming that a lot of people I see in chatter from Clash Royale. We got Ducky the Gamer and Roland, and they're just both killing it right now. So absolutely happy with where we are.
Sweet. Yeah, no, I keep up with Ducky a little bit, just like through social media and stuff. He's crushing it, especially in like the recent events or something. I think he's like placing in a lot of them and that kind of thing. Yeah, good for him. I'm happy for him.
When you're a content creator, that you could also compete at a competitive level and do well. You're in a pretty sweet spot. So
that's hard. That's like the epitome of top tier, content creator and like pro or whatever, being able to compete with those guys. That's hard to do. That's really hard to do. So good for him. Good for all the people who can do that. I can't do that. So bad. Holy shit.
I learned a long time ago I'm not as good of a player as the people I'm signing. So
I'm good at. I'm really good at recognizing my weaknesses, and that is it's a miracle that I made it this far, to be honest. Okay, so before we really start chopping it up here, just as a general overview, Matt here is an absolute expert, a wizard at all things mobile gaming. So I'm sure we're going to touch on like how we got here, current state of mobile gaming, future of mobile gaming, that kind of thing, and everything in between. So if you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts afterwards, I'll have timestamps in the description. So if you're looking for something specific, just be aware of that. But how about a good place to start is the current state of mobile gaming. What does the landscape look like? What are the big names, U.S. versus international? Because there's a huge difference there that a lot of casuals are not aware of. So if you just want to like dive in head first there and just give your take.
Man, we're starting off with a bang. That's a big question. So, but let me first say, I want to preface first that I'm not. I don't consider myself an expert.
You don't consider yourself an expert, but I do. And I am in no position to give you that title, but I'm going to do it anyway. So,
yeah, I think I'm really fortunate to just be in a spot with Complexity here where I can just focus 100% of my attention on mobile esports. And what I enjoy doing more than anything else is just going out and learning from people that are in these games about what they're experiencing and what they're coming across and stuff. And so what I just really enjoy, is just learning about mobile esports, and the entrepreneur in me, since I come from an entrepreneurial background, I'm just constantly kind of looking for opportunities and seeing what things could be done to really push it forward. So, but yeah, as far as where we are, like right now, it's an insanely exciting time. And I was actually really happy, Rozay, that you asked me to come on here, because what a better time now to kind of recap 2019 and kind of project to 2020, because I think that, this year has really set a foundation for something that's just going to blow up. And I think 2020 is going to be big for us. We can get into that later. But as we stand right now, it's obviously really exciting times. We've got multiple mobile esports titles that have $1 million prize pools.
What are those titles, just for the people that aren't?
Yeah, sure. So Clash Royale, PUBG Mobile, Auto Chess Mobile actually had $1 million esport competition this year. Clash of Clans as well, which is a little bit under the radar in the mobile esports scene. And Fortnite Mobile actually just recently gave away $3 million in the course of a weekend, which is pretty wild. So
that's insane.
A lot of excitement going on. Yeah. And that's just here in the West, right? Like in the East, you got even more titles and more prize pools too. So really a lot of growth in the last year here in mobile. And, even not even on the esports side, if you look at just general mobile gaming, it's already here, right? I mean, mobile gaming in the West is already bigger than PC and console from a revenue perspective.
Which a lot of people don't know that. Even I was a bit surprised to hear that when I first heard it. I was like, damn, like I'm guessing, does like Candy Crush count into that? Like that, stuff like that, that counts as like a huge portion of the revenue, I'm sure. But like, I don't think the average person would ever in a million years suspect that mobile gaming is like leading the revenue. And is it by like a lot, or is it kind of close, or like what's...
So I mean, I looked at a Newzoo report recently that pretty much compared it to mobile esports revenue is about the size of PC and console combined. So
Jesus Christ, that
you put
is
it in
insane.
perspective like that, it really is mind-boggling because if you just kind of isolate the esports industry and the hyper-competitive side, it's certainly not considered like that, right? I mean, there's a bit of a stigma looking down on mobile, but that is primarily driven by the casual player base and the casual audience. And that brings a lot of nuances, a lot of intricacies in how an esports ecosystem can be sustainable, a lot of ramifications, right? Because here we are with these really engaging competitive matches that are going on. But at the end of the day, the game's audience is casual or mid-core with a very small segment that's competitive. And so how can this competitive esport be framed and packaged in a way that's going to engage that casual audience? That is the holy grail, in my opinion, of the mobile esports industry. And if that can be unlocked, that's when we'll really start to see moves at scale in the esports industry on the mobile side that is just going to blow people away. But we're all kind of, still experimenting and learning by doing here in mobile esports, right? I mean, even titles that are going on right now, we're trying to figure out what they can be doing better to engage the broader player base. So, but it's going to come. I mean, it's just kind of inevitable. The players are here. The growth is here. Everybody that's in mobile esports right now just feels it,
Right. So. Yeah. It's like we're right on the edge of something big. We can all see it's gonna happen. We just don't know exactly when. It's like what's gonna be the thing that like pushes it over the edge.
Yeah.
So actually, that's a good question. What do you think is gonna be the thing that pushes it over? Is it gonna be a game? Is it gonna be an advancement in technology? Like what? We're already because I had like a bunch of questions I want to ask before we start pushing into the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like I mean, what do you think? Just real quick, we could dive in on this a little bit. But like, what do you think?
That's a phenomenal question. You mentioned a lot of things already, right? So I think the technology from a hardware perspective is here. Like we have devices that are 120 hertz refresh rate, that are 1440p screens. That's here already. And what we're starting to see now is that more mobile games themselves are being built to really capitalize on that. So even titles like Vainglory still, which is to this day one of the most beautiful mobile games ever made, in my opinion. If you've never played it, just download it and hop into a match and take.
I've never played it. I've heard of it, but I don't. Is that like a big international game, or is that a U.S. thing too?
Well, they're kind of reinventing themselves. They brought in Rogue Games actually to take over operations of Vainglory, which they're kind of more on the marketing side and growth side of mobile gaming. So I think it's going to be a really good thing for them. But yeah, I mean, again, just to be able to witness what is possible from a software perspective, I would definitely check that out. But anyway, so if hardware is not the thing that's going to unlock all of this, right? Software is going to take a little bit more time because people can actually, now begin building games that are really going to be captivating from a graphics perspective. But then it's so interesting because even that's not an easy answer, because on the opposite side of the spectrum, you have games like Free Fire that are really carving out a niche for a really great gameplay experience on low-end devices. And that's how Free Fire has been able to really take over a lot of emerging markets right now. They just ran an event where they had over 2 million combined concurrent viewers at their peak through all the platforms they were on, which is just incredible. And it's one of these things that in North America, nobody's really talking about. So many
Free Fire is not really anything here.
Yeah. But
I mean, we're so biased. That's another thing that I want to talk like a little bit about at some point is like because there's such a difference between just U.S. perspective and the international perspective. Like Free Fire, I'm assuming that most people, like I know about it because we're really in the trenches here. But I think most people don't even know what Free Fire is. That even like a thing in America? Like, do people play that, or is it?
I mean, it hasn't. No, not really. Right. I'm sure some people do, but here obviously it's PUBG Mobile. Call of Duty Mobile is the big one now. Fortnite Mobile obviously still going strong. So, but yeah, I mean, it's really interesting though to see that Free Fire is having so much success, and they're carving out such a niche on leveraging their performance on low-end devices. So
Right.
really intriguing though. Yeah, but
So that almost says like high-end devices aren't necessary to keep pushing forward mobile gaming. Like that's living proof of it, right? Like obviously it doesn't hurt, more technology, better screens, that kind of thing. But like even with the better screens thing, like I feel like most people don't even have those kind of devices, because most people just run, in the US at least, most people just run like an iPhone or something, which isn't exactly designed for gaming. But I mean, they're more than sufficient. I mean, they're pretty powerful from as long as you have like a semi-recent one.
And so now if it's not hardware and it's not software, like what is it that's going to happen that's really going to unlock all this value that's here? And I think there's a lot of ways to tackle this. It's a big question. I think though that the thing that's going to really unlock it is answering that question of what ways can we get the average user down this funnel of engagement from casual to mid-core to competitive. And obviously, the more people that have high-end devices, they're able to run these captivating games, and they'll buy into it. The more competitive games there are that are made and are popular. So Call of Duty Mobile obviously is one that got 100 million downloads in its first week, which was a record.
That's insane. That's an absolute. Do you know what just off the top of your head? I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you know like what the current downloads is at right now? Like total?
I saw a report the other day. It was 180 million, I believe, and it's been out for just over 2 months. So still, I mean, really great numbers. And what's really actually fascinating is that I saw a report on their revenue recently, and I may get this wrong by a few percent, but I believe it was like 54% of the revenue came from the U.S. market, which is like fascinating.
Is that
right?
like, is it usually the opposite?
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. is obviously one of the top 1, 2, or 3 countries usually, but the fact that the majority of the in-game revenue is coming from the U.S. just shows how much cultural penetration Call of Duty Mobile has in the West, and that to me is really exciting because it's that type of demographic for a distribution in a game that's going to cause a game to really take off in the West, right? So now we've got a lot of Western interest in sponsors, organizations are going to come. So really, really excited to see what their esports plans are. Nothing has been kind of released publicly except for a small event in Southeast Asia. So definitely on everybody's radar right now in mobile esports.
They're definitely going to do something, right? Like there's no way they don't, the Call of Duty Mobile, they're going to have something, right? I would assume. Not that you're going to leak. I don't want you to like leak insider info or anything, but I think everyone's just kind of waiting on the announcement. But Call of Duty Mobile to me was super interesting for a couple of reasons. Like, because Call of Duty is arguably one of like the most well-known household names. Like that's like a big title as far as gaming goes, just in general. And then that kind of having that brought onto mobile was interesting because that brought a lot of attention to mobile, right? So you have like this crossroads, but at the same time, Call of Duty is like it's such like even today it's better. It's a better experience on PC, right? Like it's not like a true genuine mobile game. Like Clash Royale, like that can't be replicated somewhere else. It's not a better experience on a PC. So that's interesting to me. Just like as far as like the future of mobile gaming goes, like, do you think it's going to be like an FPS, a shooter, or like a more of like a strategy game, that kind of thing, like something? Because to me, and obviously you're way more knowledgeable about this than I am, but like to me, it's something like what's really going to have to start pushing, be the big motivator is games that cannot be that are not a better experience on other platforms, right? Like true mobile games, natural mobile games. When those things start really like what's the next Clash Royale, something like that pops off, like a steamroll of a couple of those kind of games coming out that really makes things take off.
Yeah, so I think that certainly from the perspective of what's going to break down a stigma, if the more games that are successful that you don't get an advantage or better graphics or whatever on another device, the better it is for mobile from that point of view for that topic. But at the same time, we have titles now like PUBG Mobile, where there's a ton of people playing PUBG Mobile, and they prefer playing that even though they have access to a PC. So I think that they could be mutually exclusive as far as the scenes and the industries and stuff. I enjoy playing mobile games, and I just built last month a gaming PC, but just for my lifestyle and the way that I consume games, that's the better platform for me. So to each their own.
Yeah. So just off the top of my head, I'm just kind of rattling stuff off as things come to mind. It's gonna switch a little bit, but like, what do you think about folding phones? Because to me, it's interesting, and I don't think that they're exactly out yet. But is that like a gimmick, or because like some of, like, I saw this, like, I think it was on Twitter or something. This phone, it like folded open, so it was essentially like twice the size of two phones. So then it was almost like a tablet at that point, but you couldn't see the fold, so it was just like a flawless screen, like an 8-inch screen or something crazy. And there was like, it was a clip of some dude playing like a shooter or something. I don't know, but it was like, damn, that's kind of intense. And then, you combo that, maybe you hook up a controller, and then it's like you could literally just play anywhere. Like, just maybe you don't even need the controller at some point. I also saw something just today of like a case that I didn't know existed, that you put on your phone, and then it puts like buttons. Instead of tapping the screen, you could tap the physical buttons, just stuff like that. That to me is crazy. So, I mean, do you have any like thoughts on that?
I mean, so one of the things that's going to naturally develop in this industry as mobile esports grows are going to be some of the categories of companies that you see in PC or console esports, right? And one of those, exactly like you're talking about, is peripheral products, right? So to the extent that I'm wearing a HyperX headset or I have a HyperX keyboard that I play games on, what is that going to look like for the mobile gaming industry? Because as more people are playing competitively, they're going to want high-end products or just reasonably priced products or whatever that are going to allow them to get a competitive edge, or just enhance their gaming experience. And so I think that that's something that's really exciting, and again, something that is just going to inevitably develop, but it's going to look totally different, I think, than what you have right now for PC and console, because it has to be perfectly attuned to the mobile gamer, and we just play games differently.
So what do you think it's going to look like? Is it going to be like little finger gloves, or like what do you think?
Yeah, so you have finger sleeves. A lot of FPS players use them. You've got lots of stuff. You mentioned that case that has buttons kind of built in already. I've seen some that have triggers on the rim of the case itself. That's really an interesting concept as well. You've got good microfiber wipes just to keep your screen clean, because that's important to us on a touchscreen device.
Of course.
There's so many different things that could be done. And honestly, there's a little bit of focus. There's a couple companies in particular that are doing great work from that perspective. Mobile Gaming Core is one. Razer has done a lot of mobile products. I got a Jungle Cat that I tested the other day, and that was fun for kind of a Bluetooth controller perspective.
I don't know what a Jungle Cat is. Is that literally just like a Bluetooth controller?
Yeah, exactly, right? So Bluetooth controller that allows you to play kind of controller joystick mechanics on a mobile device. And it just kind of, I have a Samsung Note 9, so they have a case that is built into it so that just the controllers are right on the sides of your phone. So it basically is like a Nintendo Switch. So that's really interesting. Yeah, there's so much interesting technology right now. So yeah, but we've still kind of just scratched the surface on it. And where we're going to be like 3 years from now with mobile gaming products is going to be, I think, really exciting and interesting.
So you said 3 years. This whole thing's gonna be just bouncing around, because
do it, man. I'm ready.
That's just how I roll. So what do you think of like the timetable of the mobile gaming thing is? I know it's hard to say and no one really knows, obviously, but like, what are we looking at? Like 5 years till this is like really mainstream? 10 years? 20 years? Like, what are we thinking?
Well, let me ask you, like, what is mainstream? What exactly are you asking?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. You can kind of define it yourself, because just like future. What are we looking at here before? Maybe it's like,
right.
I don't know, the thing, or super accepted. The stigma's gone. Whatever way you want to interpret it. Just any sort of timeline as to the future. What are you thinking?
Yeah, because what I've found is that a lot of people ask that question expecting that mobile is going to get to where PC esports is, or where console esports is. And what I think is that mobile is just going to become something that's different and unique, and you can't always compare it to what exists right now. Like, you can draw inspiration and say, yes, there are going to be competitive events just like there are for PC and console. But there's so much that's different about mobile gaming and mobile gamers that is going to cause the industry to move in a direction that is different. And one of those is, to give a concrete example, is events, particularly live events. So up to this point, there have been a host of great live events for mobile esports. And they've been put on by production companies that have hosted also PC and console games. And basically what you have is like a spectating event, right? So you go and you watch the competitors, and it's super exciting because that's the player that you really like or the organization you really like. And what's a challenge? We kind of talked about, mobile gaming as a category has an audience that's much more casual and mid-core. Is that I think that there's going to be a significant market in the future for mobile gaming, where there are live events that are also maybe not even built around competition or esports necessarily in the traditional format. I don't think, there are going to be successful spectating events in mobile esports, but I think there will be a subset as well that may not even involve spectating. So anyway,
what do you mean by that? Hang on. I don't know if I'm just like completely. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Let me give you an example. So last year, I ran an event called Mobile Gaming Monday, and I ran that through the TCL Chinese Theater. And I wanted to use a format that I think really leveraged the mobile platform's advantages and the flexibility and accessibility that this has, because we're not limited by hardware, right? You don't need to set up PC stations or console stations throughout the venue. And so it was actually an open floor format where we had different stations around the venue that you could actually bring your device up to and participate in a game-related activity. And then once you complete that, you can get a prize or a raffle ticket or something. We had a scavenger hunt set up. Then you can just kind of freely wander through the venue and hop into the next station and compete in that activity, right? And it could be something like a competition. You have to do a game mechanic, just something really fun for casual players. But it created this like really awesome vibe at the event where everybody's kind of mingling and talking with each other. And like, we had a 2v2 station where everybody was playing with everybody else there. And that was really cool. Like you're meeting and engaging with people. And like, that was just so fascinating to me that something that is built to almost be like a carnival or a festival could be done surrounding a mobile game.
Yeah, it's like a social event as opposed to like a, like you said, a spectator. That makes a lot more sense I'm glad you went into that. Yeah. It's almost like, this might be a stretch, but it's going to exist one day where you go to like a bar, like people go to the bar nowadays to watch like a football event or whatever. You go to the bar and it's, you go there and everyone's coming there with their devices and you're playing games or, whatever, something like that. I'd probably be the only person to go to that now because I'm a nerd, but I think that's a good idea, something like that basically replicates what you just talked about, but on a regular just people want to do it more often. So then every Friday, Saturday, that's the hot spot to go for nerds, and then I'm there.
Yeah, and you actually see some of that nowadays, right? So actually, last year I ran an event actually with Clash with Ash called a Clash Night, which is basically like a local get together here in San Francisco where I live. And we had over 125 people, I think near 150 people, all in this bar. And it was kind of a similar setup. Like you go to this part of it and you can do an activity, and then you kind of circle around and go here. And it was just an awesome experience. So you see that now also in PUBG Mobile. A company called Super League is trying to scale some local live event series across the United States, and they're doing exactly the same thing. So I think there's so many advantages to the platform of mobile that can allow it to really do some things that you just can't even conceive doing on PC or console.
Yeah, that's another interesting. Like, there's so many advantages. It's almost like guaranteed to win, if you know what I mean. Like, it can't lose just because there's so like the convenience of being able to play anywhere, and everybody already having a phone, and even more people are going to get phones, and it's only going to get, like, it's everything is positioned so that way, like, it has to win. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's hard to fail. I'll tell you that, when you have so many players and so many people that want to get together and compete. I'll tell you this. So I think that to date, the most successful live event for a mobile game is one that absolutely just took over the entire world for some time. It's Pokemon Go. Do you remember when Pokemon Go first launched a few years ago? Literally, everybody was playing it, and they were going down the block to the Pokestop. They're hanging out at the cafe. They're hanging out just in the middle of nowhere, right? Because there's a Pokestop. And there were buildings that were shut down. They had to put up signs saying, hey, you can't park here just to play Pokemon Go because it's for customers. And it just completely took over the entire culture of not just the United States, but so many countries around the world. And it's also huge in Southeast Asia. And to me, like, that just brings out so many amazing qualities that the future of mobile gaming is going to encompass, because only mobile could have done that.
Right. So when you say like quality, like, I feel like a while back that I saw you mention something like qualities like of that only mobile gaming can offer. So like there's that like outside. So that involved AR, augmented reality, AR. Yes. do you think AR is going to be like a huge player in the future of mobile gaming, or like is it going to be like just a portion of it, you know, like its own little thing, or you know, like, what do you think of those AR VR aspects?
So one of the other really exciting things about right now is that if you look at technology and tools that are being built for events just as a category, right? I'm talking also like music festivals, conventions, all the technology is moving mobile. And you know, you have now Bluetooth tracking technology, so you can map out where your attendees are going in the event and identify which things are most popular, which things are not as popular. You can create activities that are based on proximity. So as you walk up to this station, you know, it's identifying that you're there, and you can have something unique show up on your phone or something happen there, right? That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, AR, right? So you can have like selfie stations with AR stuff around you, right? You don't have to necessarily build each thing that you want to have at a selfie station. So there's so many creative applications for AR. Pokemon Go is a really unique game. I know that there's been a couple that have kind of used that model. So is that like the model of the future for mobile? I don't know exactly, but you know, nobody can really see the future, but
Right.
they've been able to really build something special with Pokemon Go, and that game's still really going strong. So
What were the other ones that were kind of big, just off the top of your head, if you know them?
AR games, there was a Harry Potter game that was released that used kind of a similar setup, you know, different control mechanics and stuff, but the same concept of AR, and then you do something on the phone when you're there. Also geographically based stations.
Mm-hmm.
Those are I think the main two that are going on right now. But that's the other thing, is that there are just new games popping up every single day, and there's more good mobile games now than there ever have been in the past. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's why I just kind of just try to keep my head down and just keep learning based on what people are doing and encountering, because you can never, you know, stand still in this industry, or else it'll just pass you by.
Right. Yeah. No, it's moving quick. That's for sure. So speaking of good mobile games right now, what do you think like are the top handful of mobile games? Like Call of Duty Mobile, you mentioned. Fortnite Mobile, you mentioned. Here's one: Mario Kart. What are your thoughts on Mario Kart?
That's a great casual game. Great casual game. I mean,
Right.
I played
So
it.
do you think it like? I thought it was interesting. I don't know. Maybe I'm biased just because I'm old school, but like they released it. And for those of you guys that don't know, Mario Kart has like a mobile version now, and it's vertical. And I think you could play with your friends and stuff, right? Like it's like competitive, like online. Is that true?
Yeah. I know. I think when it launched, it didn't have that capability, if I'm remembering correctly. But then I'm not sure if they released that. But yeah.
I would assume they did that because that would
Yeah.
be like the big thing. Because I was just it's interesting that they did it vertical as opposed to horizontal. Because I would think that like horizontal. I don't know. It just
Yeah.
to me it makes a lot more sense to do it horizontal. But then again, maybe it's more appealing to more casuals. They do it vertical. You know. Here we go. This leads into another question: vertical versus horizontal mobile gaming.
Yes.
What do you think is? Obviously, they both have their own place, but I mean, what?
That's a bit of a hot topic too, because actually going back to CRL season 1, the broadcast of that esport was done in portrait mode, and there was so much. You know, that was one of the most polarizing topics in that esport at that time.
What was the takeaway? Did most people like it or hate it?
In the esports scene, it was not really thought very highly of.
Right,
Because
but
people
what
are
about like
used
the
to
casual viewer?
horizontal, you know, overlay, and being able to see information, or the casters on the side, or whatever the case is, right?
So like
But
when people were watching on their phones, they would literally just see the game of Clash as if they were playing it, kind of thing. That's how it was broadcasted.
exactly, and that's why casual people kind of liked it, is that
Interesting.
that's the game that they recognize, and then they
Right.
hop into the esport and it looks similar, you know. So that's one of the things that again, if we start thinking about what the biggest challenge is for mobile esports right now, it's that balance between competition and the casual audience. It's, you know what, competitively, hey, maybe it's better to have a picture of the players on the side, so you can start building player brands or statistics or other things, casters. But if you're trying to appeal to the casual audience, you know, if product market fit is a real concept and it's important, and your market is casual, then maybe some decisions ought to be made to cater to them, to the extent that it doesn't take away from competitive integrity and things that are good for the esports ecosystem or necessary for it. But that's you know, it all comes down to that basically in mobile esports right now. And the hope is that you know, the publisher has the wisdom to be able to know which things are going to add to the ecosystem, and which things would be a detriment to it. But it's a learning experience. No game has, you know, there's no cookie cutter model that you can just say, hey, they did it in this game, so it's going to work for us. You kind of have to learn quickly and adapt and create your own destiny.
Right. Yeah. No, this is like, I don't know what the expression is, the Oregon Trail or some shit. Like, it hasn't exactly been pushed yet. Like, we're still trying to figure it out on our way. The path has not been carved, I guess, is one of the expressions. So that's interesting. And God, I had 2 hot questions and I just lost my train of thought. Fuck. One of them was, I don't know if the technology is there right now or if it's realistic, like the portrait versus landscape thing. It would be super interesting if you were watching on your phone and you could watch in portrait mode, but if you flip your phone, then it like switches the broadcast, so then you could have like the choice to watch either way. Is that humanly possible?
Yeah, so this is a great segue to the future of mobile esports, because this is one of the things I wanted to bring up, is that I think one of the impacts of mobile being such a successful platform is that we're going to see streaming overlays that are going to be responsive to the size of the device. And basically, a good example of this is any website that you'll visit. If you go to it on your computer, it's going to look different than if you have the mobile view and you're browsing the web on your phone, right? That, in theory, could also be true for streaming overlay and content that we're consuming from that perspective. So, what framework can be built to kind of identify like, hey, if it's this device, I want it to look this way. If my phone's portrait or horizontal, it changes, or if I hop on my computer, it looks different, but it's all the same stream and it's just responsive based on how you're viewing it, right? So I think that that's something that is going to, that's an impact that mobile may have on the future of gaming and content consumption in general.
Yeah, because even just as a content creator myself, like I stream Clash Royale and it's a vertical game, right? So it would be so cool if, let's just say Twitch, for example, or anybody, YouTube, Caffeine, I don't really care, just somebody pushes the boundaries and like offers a way so that way I could stream vertical. I don't know if I would use it, but it would be super cool to be able to do that. And that, if perfect world, people just want to tilt their phone and then they could see, my webcam and all that stuff too. That would be incredible. But okay, so this leads into another thing. So do you know of, I don't know if, I don't want you to like leak anything that you know of, or maybe I'm just spitballing here. Do you know of any company like really pushing like YouTube versus Twitch, let's just say, for example? Like, I don't see a whole lot of mobile gaming push, or it's not like one of their top priorities, I guess you could say, is like you don't see mobile games on the Twitch homepage, right? That kind of thing. Do you know if either company or anything like that that's really starting to embrace it more than the others?
Well, I will say that mobile, as big as it is right now, is on all streaming platforms' radars.
Yeah, 100%.
Everybody's certainly aware of it, and I've talked with Twitch as well. Complexity has a great partnership with Twitch, and I know that they're really looking to the future as well to see what things they can be doing to really cater to mobile specifically. So I'm excited. Again, I can't too many details, but I do know it's definitely something that they're looking at in the future in a big way, because even if this is something else to consider, is that even if you're a fan of a PC game or console game, you may be watching that content on your phone, right? So it doesn't even necessarily have to be a mobile game that causes you to adapt your platform to a mobile user, right? So that's also one of the things where people who are from PC or console who kind of look down on mobile as an industry, if they're typing that mean tweet on their phone, like, you're kind of in a small part of the mobile industry yourself, you know what I mean? Because you use that device in your daily consumption of gaming. So
I think you're talking about Dr. Disrespect right now, are you?
Well, I wasn't going to mention him specifically, but
Oh, I was going to. So I opened the floodgates now. So do you want to talk? Can you give a little background on what that's all about?
Or do you not want to? Okay. To preface it, he put out a tweet. I don't remember how long ago it was, 3 or 4 months ago, saying that mobile gamers aren't gamers. And that was something that just was so polarizing, because it brought out all the people in PC games that are like super hardcore and PC master race, like scoffing at mobile. And then all the people here in this industry are like, is this a joke? Like, what are you talking about? And I remember some people had some awesome replies to that tweet, like Hot Jukes, who's a great PUBG Mobile player. He's like, he posted a GIF of him in Dubai when he was there competing at a PUBG Mobile event, and it was like, all right, man, whatever you think. And there were some awesome replies. But I also had some fun with that myself. I had a custom T-shirt made up with that tweet on the front, and I posted that out. So I also have some other fun stuff making fun of people that stigmatize mobile planned for next year too. So
oh boy, wow, we're cooking, huh? Damn.
I think what's going to be really good for us as an industry, though, is that if people in mobile esports can just inform themselves with the right way to handle those situations, um, then we can know how to handle ourselves and operate when that comes up. Because this, that type of stigma is not going to go away overnight. There are going to be more people sitting behind, their computer typing stuff at us, and but we all know here, and we get the sense, and we are just so consumed by it that there's something here and it's real, and we
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be here if it wasn't. And you know what? You can believe what you think about what your preferred platform is and stuff, but like, we're gonna do us. So
Right. Yeah, it's undeniable. So it's like the old people, like the 60-year-old people that are always like, "Ah, you damn kids." I feel like it's that kind of same concept.
Okay,
Like,
boomer.
there's no way. Yeah, okay, boomer. That whole thing. That's okay. So anywho, before I go off on a tangent, so I know you wanted to mention, like, talk a lot about the future of mobile gaming here. Did we hit all the points you wanted to hit about the future, or is there more that you want to dig into there? I know there's a ton, but you could probably talk on your own for 6 hours here. I could just prompt you with that and then come back in 2 hours and you could still be going. But is there anything else you want to hit?
There's so much that you can talk about, right? Just because there's so much excitement right now, and we've still only scratched the surface of what this industry is going to be, which is really exciting. But I think we hit on some great points already. Obviously, anything that we kind of talk about, there's conversation to be had about what could be done better, or what things may look like 3 years from now or 5 years from now. But yeah, I think it's pretty solid, man.
Sweet. So okay, so let's just now. Most of my audience is going to be Clash Royale. I want to just kind of hop into that for a little bit, just touch on your opinion of how they're, like, the direction that they're going with the game, whether you like it or not, personal opinion, professional opinion, however you want to approach it, just the direction of Clash Royale, because I know I saw that from a couple people. They just want to know about the game specifically.
Yeah, and obviously both of us come from a Clash Royale background, so really natural that we have people that are interested in that. I'll say, first of all, I mean, having been part of this esports scene for 3 seasons now, we're at a point where we're kind of better off than we ever have been in the esport, right? Like, no technical issues with operations. You've got great casters that have gotten better every single season, and honestly, I think they're really underappreciated. I hope they're really appreciated right now, but we ought to really give them props for what they've done, because they've put together some really captivating broadcasts. Like the World Finals event that we had just recently here was phenomenal. It was absolutely incredible, and I was had a great opportunity to be there live in LA as well, and to be able to just witness that for a mobile game is like so inspiring to me. So
it was nutty. It was so it was really next level. Everything went smooth. It was just so picture perfect, like straight out of a movie. It was crazy. It really was. Absolutely. Production value there was insane, with the lighting, and it really was like, wow. this is pretty crazy.
And you couldn't have written a better script. It was so poetic the way that it played out from a gameplay perspective. Like Surgical Goblin, the guy that just arrived the day before to the United States because of the visa issue, just walks right in there and like closes out that defining match against SK Gaming in the semifinal by winning by 1 HP. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you can't script that. And then he goes and wins it as a final guy in the finals as well to win, and it's just incredible. So yeah, really, really happy for Liquid and all of the West to be able to just put on a great show there. And but yeah, I mean, how after that event, to me, that was just so inspiring. Like, I'm so looking forward to the future of this esport personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. Do you have it? You probably can't talk about it, even if you do. Just like next year's CRL World Final event. Do you know? Can we talk on that at all?
The World Final event next year? I don't know anything necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you don't know anything, or you wink wink? What?
Well, I can neither confirm nor deny. But...
Okay. All right. That's fair enough. That's okay. That's more than fair.
But,
okay.
I'm really fortunate to be in a spot where also, like, I'm an advocate for the players, and especially the semi-pro community, and the players and the organizations in CRL as well, is to kind of listen to their pain points and stuff, and provide some feedback as well to the league. And I'll say, personally speaking, my experience is that Supercell and OG and the production company have been extremely, extremely receptive to feedback. And that, to me, is just, one of the most important things from a longevity perspective, is that, they are able to really recognize that there's a lot of partners that go into this esports ecosystem. And, we got to just be in it together, and just really awesome to be able to have a publisher that really goes out of their way to support people. I mean, again, I just ran this Clash Contender Series global finals, grand finals event yesterday, so I probably still have bags under my eyes from that, because it was a grind, man. Let me tell you, getting up to that event. But a lot of work went into it. But what an incredible gesture that Supercell was able to match the prize pool contributions from our crowdfunding campaign to be able to make that event happen. So they really definitely recognize that semi-pro scene is something that's important, and went out of their way to really demonstrate that and make that possible. So
yeah, that's something I wanted to talk on too, was the Clash Contender Series. So I'm not overly familiar with that. I like I said before we got going here, I live under a rock and I don't know anything about anything. So if you want to just from my understanding, it's like there wasn't an established semi-pro league for Clash Royale, so there was no real transition from casual to pro. There was no path. So from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you were trying to create that path for people.
Yeah, exactly. It's the path to pro that can just get the aspiring professional player inspired to compete and keep playing and competing, because a lot of players just need a platform, and so this was something that kind of started, I can't remember the exact date, but sometime in like March or April, I made a tweet just kind of looking for a new initiative to support Clash Royale, and literally like every single response to that was create a semi-pro league. Like, we need something for the semi-pro guys here. And I really stepped back for a minute because it was such an overwhelming response, right? And just thought like, hey, what can we design that's going to be the perfect format and competition for them that they need for where they are right now? So anyway, I put a really great team together. I'm so fortunate in this game to just have connections with people that are phenomenal at what they do. And we were able to rally about 15 people together as management and staff for the event. And once we did that, we had a lot of back and forth about what the competitive format should be. How should it be structured? How long should it go? How many teams should be involved? What sets, what format should it be?
You had to build the whole thing from scratch, right?
Complete scratch. And I just have a totally new appreciation for tournament organizers. I've hosted a lot of events, but hosting something that is at that scale and has that, that stamp of approval from the publisher, like the stakes are raised, like expectations are way higher when you get stuff like that. So anyway, we were able to put together something that really emulated the CRL format, just thinking from the perspective of, that's a great way to equip people for the big stage. And then I packaged the plans and came up with a presentation that I put in front of Supercell. And I made the ask, basically, I think a perfect way to get Supercell involved in this and to really add fuel to the fire in a way that's great for everybody involved and would be a rallying experience for the community would be for Supercell to match the crowdfunding contributions. And I'm just so thankful that they were open to that idea and actually went one step further. And after agreeing and finalizing everything with Clash Contender Series, they went over to Brawl Stars and kind of implemented that same format with the Brawl League Europe, and they're matching crowdfunding contributions for a second game, and that is absolutely awesome. So
making waves out here, huh?
Yeah. So another thing where it's like, like Supercell's taking feedback and making adjustments, and man, they've been able to really do some great things recently supporting the communities.
That's absolutely incredible. How much was the prize pool?
So we were able to raise $5,250, which was exactly what our goal was,
which was crowdfunding, right? Just people donating.
Yeah. So our prize pool was $10,000, and then we had $500 set aside for just administrative costs, and want to give small gifts to our admins that handled some of the games, and
of course
some design expenses too. But we were able to have a $10,000 prize pool for a community run event, and that was just phenomenal. Yeah,
that's insane. Like that's real money, like that's a big deal. And a lot of the people competing in this, I'm sure, are teenagers, so yeah. Who won that? Do you know?
Yeah,
of course you know.
I do know. Yeah, it's just this phenomenal group. They had a really stellar competitive lineup and also really good staff behind them that I think played a big part in that victory. So, but really happy for them. They beat Team Liquid Academy in the finals.
So, and do you think that the exposure that they received there, like, I mean, obviously the hope is that exposure kind of leads to you hope to see some of those players get signed by actual pro teams next season.
Yeah.
that's the hope.
Yeah, so I mean that's the hope, and I'll tell you this. So there's going to be obviously a little bit of a gap before the next CRL season starts, but what happened actually is because I think of success in CCS, there were multiple players that ended up getting signed to SLO teams, which is aside from CRL and CCS, the biggest Clash Royale league that's going on right now. So certainly believe and hope that CCS played a part in that. But those players, I feel like some of those people just kind of needed a shot, right? Like they just needed that platform to show the world like, hey, I have what it takes. And just to see them continue their path is phenomenal.
Because that was one of the things from the last 20 win challenge that I saw people complaining about, is that it didn't manifest. Like even people that got 20 wins in the 20 win challenge, it didn't manifest in like no teams really picked anybody up. They kind of just re-signed people, and people switched teams. And so that was a big complaint that I saw. So hopefully something like an event like this kind of just adds to players' resumes. We start seeing some new faces, on the main stage. That's the ideal world, right?
Yeah. So
that's the whole goal.
Ideal, yeah. You want to have a competition for everybody, right? At different levels and stuff. So I definitely hope that we'll be able to have something in 2020 for the semi-pro community. And I just think that this season was so evident of how important it is in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, really hopeful for the future though for 2020 esports.
Sweet. So I want to make sure that we hit all the topics that you wanted to cover. That was obviously super important. Is there anything that you I don't know if you have like a notepad there or something. I just want to make sure that we talk about everything that you want to get before we're about an hour in now, I think. I don't even have my timer up, but I know the chat has some questions, and I know we had some farm before from Twitter.
Yeah, and I also put some tweets out exactly. So I'd love to answer some of those now if you're up for it.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, so chat, if you guys are watching live right now, feel free to put any well thought out questions in the chat. We have a couple here, so we could just start rolling with some of these. So kind of on the same token here, this is actually like a perfect transition, is from the Clash Contender thing.
Great.
For aspiring pro players or semi-pro players or people just looking to get their name out there, what are the best ways to get recognized by pro teams? Like what qualities stand out when recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, what an awesome question. And I'll say, obviously winning helps.
The results speak for themselves. Yep.
One thing that I've noticed with the progression of esports is, let me just backtrack real quickly. What's going to lead to your success in your game is going to be different than what's going to lead to someone's success in another game. If it's team-based, what's going to lead to success is going to be a good team. It's going to be communication. It's going to be, putting the team ahead of yourself and your own ego. It's communicating. Yeah, but that's totally different than an individual game like an auto chess title or Clash Royale, perhaps. So you got to be able to look at how other people are having success and try to learn what it is that they're doing and adapt your own practice habits and strategies, right? Mm-hmm. Because you also have to be self-sufficient. Like you got to have a real internal drive to be an esports player, because it's a ton of work. It's a lot of hours, and there's no one that's behind you saying you got to keep going, like it's got to come from you at the end of the day. So if that internal fire is not there, then that's going to be a real obstacle. And that's one of the things that I personally look for in competitive players is, you got to really have a drive to be the best in the world and do whatever it takes in order to achieve that. And obviously you got to have the raw talent and all these other things that go into it. If you're a content creator, maybe that can help, having the opportunity to make some awesome videos and reach a lot more fans. But yeah, as a player, so advice that I would give to you, at the early stages of a game, what the players who are at the top do is they just play a lot more than anybody else. And when a game is first launched, if you just hustle and grind and just, learn faster than anybody else, that's going to lead to an advantage. In the later stages of a game, after it's been out for years, you have to play a lot. You have to play hard, but you also have to play smart, because at that point, everybody's playing a lot of hours a day, and they've had a lot of experience in the past. And so you have to refine your practice habits to make sure that you're using your time most effectively so that you improve. So playing hard at the start, putting in the hours and the work in order to get ahead. And then also playing smart and making sure you're doing the right things to increase your skill set and your talents. based on your individual game. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, there's no cookie cutter solution, unfortunately, for that question, because all the games are so different. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that one. So I think that, okay, now here comes Rozay with his hot take on here. Mobile gaming expert Matt just gave his, and now here comes the clown coming in hot. But no, I on a real note, I think that content creation is a super underrated portion of that, because at the end of the day, if you're looking to get signed by an organization, it kind of comes down to how much value do you bring that organization, right? And obviously a lot of that is just performance. You got to be good at the game. You got to be showing that. You got to be winning tournaments, placing in global tournaments, whatever the case may be. Depends on the game, obviously. You got to be performing at the end of the day. You got to be top tier to compete at that high level. But if it comes down, if it's you and another guy with equal skill and they're thinking about signing, and you just happen to have 10,000 YouTube subscribers and you have an audience, and the other guy has zero, no social media presence, that's a lot of eyes on, at the end of the day, a lot of eyes on the brand that's signing you. So I mean, and then building your own personal brand too, that's just good for you to have awareness and attention, and then that allows you to network, and your name is out there. It's, if you got a bunch of people knowing about you, you have a better chance of getting in front of the right person's eyes, as opposed to not having any presence whatsoever and just performing. I just think that content creation is such a big factor, and it's such a differentiator that a lot of people overlook. So just being on Twitter, being in the community, being on Instagram, being on YouTube, being everywhere, I think it just doesn't, it can only help. And I think a lot of people overlook that. So that was my hot take on that. So.
Dude, I think you nailed it too, because you want to make sure that it's something that's sustainable for you, right? And your competitive career, even if you're the best player in the world, like, what happens if in 3 years that game's not as popular anymore, or you're not as good, or you get an injury or whatever, right? So it can be a lot more sustainable for you if you start building a personal brand, creating some content. It's not for everybody, and you certainly don't have to do it in order to be a successful esports player, right? I want to make sure that's clear. But if you do have the luxury to create a YouTube channel and create a personal brand around yourself that people will follow when you move to another game, perhaps, or do something else like that, just put yourself in a position where you can do this as a career long term. So that's definitely something where, if you really want to be a esports player or content creator or something long term, think about it from a sustainability perspective for yourself, an opportunity to really add to your brand, like you're talking about, and create something special.
So then slight transition. So that kind of helps lay out the path for people looking to, like, aspiring pro players. So then what about, like, content creation perspective? What advice do you give to content creators, like people that want to take that route instead? How can you make the best content, or how do what do you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of science that goes into content, and I think, honestly, Rozay, you're one of the people that does one of the best jobs of that, right? Like, you're always looking around for
thank you.
No, you're looking around at, like, the best examples of good thumbnails or, like, titles and stuff like that, right? Like, that's something I've really noticed about you. And you gotta you don't have to go overboard on that side of things, you know what I mean, for a content creator. But if you do 20% of the work, you can get 80% of the benefit. So just get yourself a little bit smarter, get a good graphic designer to make a thumbnail, or do it yourself. And a little bit goes a long way from that perspective. But there's also an art to it, because at the end of the day, you got to really just enjoy the content you're making. And honestly, I think that's the best advice that I could ever give to content creators, that as long as you are actually having fun and enjoying yourself, you know what? Viewers are going to have fun too. So
yeah, your energy is going to radiate toward it. I mean, that's how I built my entire audience. It's not big, a few thousand people, that's a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not. But I mean, it's not because I'm good at the game, I'll tell you that much. I just enjoy doing this shit. That's all there is to it, Yeah. But I mean, like you said, I totally geek out on this. I on the CWA podcast, the one I did with him, I was telling him, I think I enjoy, like, the business aspect of it more than the actual content creation. Like, don't get me wrong, I really love the game and making content and stuff, but, like, the nitty gritty of, like, finding out how to maximize the exposure from this one Instagram post, and, like, adding exactly 30 hashtags is the maximum amount you can use. So using every single one of those and fine tuning to get in front of the most eyes, like that kind of stuff. And even with the thumbnail designer, the guy that I'm working with now on the most recent thumbnail that he just made, like the text on it was like easy wins or something like that, and we were going back and forth for a little while, and he used like green as the background color because there's a psychological trick that people associate green with easy, so that they're more likely to like click on it or something like stuff like that gets me going. Oh my god, I can't, like, I love that kind of stuff. So I think that's more of like a business aspect, but
awesome. But no, you know, I'm actually so glad you mentioned that, because that's a great example of a way that someone can make it more sustainable for them. Is because the reality is that the esports industry is so huge, and there's so many job opportunities here that may not be apparent to the average person, because the average person just sees the players, they see the YouTubers, they see the commentators, and they, you know, think like, oh, that's what I've got to do if I want to have a career in esports. But there's so much that happens behind the scenes. There's league ops. There are so many divisions of organizations that work in esports. You can have a sales department, a sponsorship side. You can have a marketing department. You can have operations, logistics, hospitality. There's so many different career paths in the esports industry. And you know what? If you're going to do well in one of those, you better believe it helps to have real authentic experience as a gamer yourself. So as you're kind of going through your own path in whatever direction it's taking you, make sure you also do, put a little bit of thought into the business side. And why is it that you need to be doing this or should be doing that? Or, you know, this video blew up. Well, why? Ask yourself why, and see if you can discover the reasons behind things like that. And you can really start to inform yourself, and you'll just kind of, I mean, honestly, even like social media management, this is just totally anecdotal, right? But you know what? I bet you if you have experience as a gamer, you're going to be a much better social media manager for a gaming company than someone that has just broader social media management experience, because you need to be able to connect authentically with people, right? So there are so many ways you can just leverage being a gamer and this passion for a really sustainable career, and more paths than people even know are possible right now.
Oh yeah, I think that was one of the questions, so I'm glad you hit on that. Is that there's so many opportunities within esports that people don't even realize. Just quick little shout out, Tribe Gaming just put out, I know you're complex, but Tribe Gaming just put out a tweet like yesterday that they're looking to hire a bunch of different positions. So if anybody right now is looking for a position in esports, they literally, like anything you can imagine, they put out. So just throw a resume their way. You know, you never know. Start at the bottom. Just get your foot in the door somewhere if you want to be in esports. Be the freaking janitor, man. I don't know. Just there's so many opportunities out there, and I don't think that people know about them. So I'm just trying to show a quick spotlight on that.
And a lot of people also, like, one of the most common questions is, how can I get my foot in the door, right? Because it's also hard because there's a lot of people that want to work in esports and stuff, right? So the best piece of advice that I could possibly give you is just start anywhere, and just focus on doing great work in whatever it is that you're doing. Try to be the best at it, and then just give your time, give your energy, you know, as you're kind of starting out and stuff. And if you really do a great job, the people you're working with, you know what, they're going to want you around for future things that they're doing. And they're going to vouch for you for another company, or they'll find an open and be like, hey, you know what, I think you'd be perfect for this. So just focus on doing great work, and then just give. And honestly, like, when I look around the mobile esports industry in particular, at people that have really found stability and stuff, and CWA is a great example. Like, he's one of the most selfless people that you'll meet, because he loves building up player brands. He invites people onto his channel to do, you know, a deck spotlight or whatever, right? And it's great for that player. But you know what? It's also like, you know, CWA is really enmeshing himself in the scene and stuff. So it's like a good strategy too at the end of the day. But,
his business strat is just phenomenal. Just an all-around good guy. He does so much like behind the scenes that people don't know about. I gotta just gas him up. He hates getting gassed up, but gotta gas him up. He does so much that you guys don't see. I mean, just like, for example, at Worlds, I know for a fact that he paid for like several people's tabs like the entire time, and just like, I mean, like, he just does so much that nobody would ever see, and he doesn't do it for people to see. He just does it because genuine good guy, and it just like, it's just, and that just doing the right thing, and that's a good strategy in itself. So
but just personally speaking, I won't gas him up too much because I know he hates it, but like, honestly, just one of the people I had the most respect for so many different reasons. So I was really happy that you had him on the show too. I watched the whole thing. So
that was like, even that's another example. Coming on my show was like the 5th episode of my podcast. Like, who am I and who is he? And he's willing to come on and drop over an hour of his time to bullshit with me. You know, it's just, It's insane.
Don't sell yourself too short, though, man. You're doing good work here. So.
I mean, I'm trying, but at the same time, you know, the scale is just, you know, he's up there and I'm not yet. But we're heading there.
You're on a really good path, dude.
Slowly but surely, yeah. That we're heading in the right direction, I think. Okay, so another question here. Jump into complexity. We haven't talked specifically about complexity, and obviously I want to give them their proper airtime here. So complexity, mobile gaming. What are they doing? What's the future of mobile gaming complexity? I think someone on Twitter asked, I forget who off the top of my head, like the long-term plan. Because obviously they see, because not all gaming organizations have like a mobile gaming division, or if they do, they don't put as much emphasis on it as complexity does. So if you want to talk about that,
Dude, I love talking about complexity because honestly, it's just the more time I spend here, the more I'm just so humbled that, you know, I get to be in a spot like this. But this organization is one of the longest standing esports organizations in existence right now, actually. Been around for close to 16 years, and such a legacy and history of this organization. It was the first to have a gaming house in North America, the first to have a P1 visa to bring a player over to North America, and just to have like founding fathers of the esports industry on board, like Jason Lake and immensely talented COO and Kyle Batista. Just the opportunity to kind of learn from the OGs of the esports industry has been so eye-opening. And to your specific question, one of the things that I've learned through this experience is that every single organization is going to have a different strategy. Their goals and priorities and the way that they differentiate themselves is going to be different. And in mobile, it's really unique because you have a lot of, you know, endemic orgs that are, you know, trying to leverage like the first mover advantage to hop into new titles quickly and sign teams and try to get the best team early. And that's kind of one of the things that they'll do to get ahead. And with complexity specifically, it's an organization that really wants to differentiate by way of competitiveness and making sure that we're able to offer to our players the best facilities in the world with the incredible GameStop Performance Center out in Frisco. We also have a great partnership with the Dallas Cowboys, where we actually merged headquarters with them. And so our HQ is at the Star, which is the Dallas Cowboys facilities in Frisco, Texas.
It's
so
insane.
If you're a complexity
Absolutely
player,
insane.
You get to have access to the same player care, the same medical center, the same gyms if you wanted, the same cafeterias as the Dallas Cowboys football players. And so
which I think is that's insane because it's like the blending. It's like the blending of traditional sports and esports, you know, and it's like on the big stage, you know, Dallas Cowboys. That's like, wow, you know. So that's
the Dallas Cowboys have like the best player care in the NFL, and so for us to have access to that as an esports org is like, that's crazy to me still. So, but like you'll be living at the HQ as an esports player, and then having lunch at the training table, they call it. And you will just look over the room and, hey, there's Dak Prescott or Ezekiel Elliott, like eating
it's insane.
Right next to you. It's like, it's so inspiring. So, but so when it gets getting back to the strategy, complexity really likes to be in a position where we can pull all the levers that are available to us to support players and teams and stuff. And so I think 2020 is going to be really great. And obviously, you know, you can never really predict the future, but there's so much momentum in these games and they're growing so quickly. And especially in the West, where we're getting to this point where esports and competition can really scale, you know what I mean? Like you can reach a ton of fans and a ton of people and create engaging content that can reach, you know, tons of people. So, you know, the more that this is happening, I think the more complexity is going to have a lot of fun, especially in mobile. So, really
right. So you guys are gearing up to double down on mobile as opposed to some organizations that are slowing down on it, right?
Yeah, and again, like every single game is different. And so one other thing, I saw that tweet that you mentioned, and I do also want to preference, like every single game is going to be totally different as far as how an organization ought to approach it. And so that's another thing, is that even if there is like some overarching goal, you know, or vision for what a division ought to be, like you still got to treat it as a game by game basis. So yeah, just wanted to also make that distinction.
Yeah, I gotcha. All right, so for the next question, we're gonna pull from the chat. I don't know if you saw it. Do you have the chat open? I
do, yeah.
Okay, this one's from Pastor TP. He says, I don't know much about Google Stadia,
Stadia.
But he wants to know, is it technically a mobile platform or a PC platform? And so if you can like elaborate on that and just kind of give a rundown of what Google Stadia is and like the effect of that on the future of not just mobile but gaming in general too.
Yeah, so there's this big movement, and I know Google Stadia is really robust. And my understanding of it, I haven't looked into it, a serious amount, but my understanding of it is that it allows you to play games on any screen, basically. And I know also that Microsoft announced something recently. I think it's called Project Cloud or something along those lines, that allows you to basically play Xbox games on your mobile phone. So you can connect the Xbox controller that's Bluetooth to your phone and basically play anywhere that you are. And things like that are just really exciting. It is kind of to that question, like, is it mobile or PC? It's a bit of a hybrid, right? Because you're able to play games that were built for another platform on your mobile device. So I don't know. I mean, what is the Nintendo Switch? Is you take it with you everywhere? That makes it mobile. It's like there's going to be a little bit of gray area, but I think it actually hits on a really great point, which is that the barriers between platforms is really starting to break down. And that even is starting to be apparent at the very inception of games nowadays, where they're being designed to be platform agnostic. And so a great example of that is Fortnite, which right now is the same game experience at the end of the day, whether you're on PC or console or on your phone, or tablet, right? So they did that by design, though. They want that to be something that, like, anybody can engage and participate and consume Fortnite content in the game, no matter where they are or what they're doing, right? And so there's the opposite side of the spectrum is something that, like, is like PUBG, right? Where it's a totally different game on PC versus PUBG Mobile. But yeah, it seems like there's a lot of momentum and movement right now toward platform agnostic titles, which is, that's such an interesting concept to me. Also, by the way, just a small side note, but I know Super Evil Megacore, who is now focusing away from Vainglory and onto Project Spellfire, has a game in store that is also kind of along those lines, because platform agnostic concepts are really something that they as a publisher really value. So I can't wait to see them reveal Project Spellfire.
When is that reveal coming, do you know?
I don't know if a date's been announced, but yeah, I'll have to follow them on social media for all the latest news.
Okay, all right, cool. Yeah, good stuff coming there, obviously. I'm super intrigued by that. Just dude, because being able to play, like, because essentially, I'm gonna try and break this down to the simplest terms for all the boneheads in chat like myself. Google Stadia essentially, it's cloud computing, right? Is that the proper way to explain it? So then,
I guess so. Yeah.
You could have a shit device or literally just like a monitor, and they'll handle all of the computing. So you don't need to buy a super expensive computer or anything to play these crazy games, because they'll do all the computing in their servers somewhere. So then you just need a device or like a monitor of sorts, and you could play. And as that advances, that's super interesting, and then it contributes to a whole bunch of different things. So I think that's like the quick bonehead summary of what that's all about.
Yeah.
xCloud is what the Microsoft thing was called.
xCloud,
Okay. All right. So that was a good question. TP, thank you for asking that. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? Covered jobs in esports. That. Raise react hands. Okay. I got all. We covered all the questions that I had written down here. Did you see anything? I don't know if you had a chance to look at the chat yet to see if there's anything that jumped out at you.
Let's see. Yeah, if you guys do, definitely, if you've got a question, go ahead and ask it so we can see it here.
Quick little hot take. Brawl Stars and complexity. Anything brewing?
Well, I will say, I mean, I'm a big fan of Supercell games personally. I know they also just announced that they're ramping up esports next year, so who knows? But
that was it all for me. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Who knows, huh? All right. Interesting.
Yeah, I will say, just generally speaking, because I do get that question a lot, right? It's, hey, I'm a player in this game. Is Complexity looking to get into it, or what are the plans and stuff? And I've always got my eyes on mobile esports titles that are up and coming in the scene, and there's so many. Again, there's more now than ever before, and you even have games in the auto chess genre that are hosting $1 million events, and a lot of big games also that are due to launch in 2020, right? I mean, that's a big topic to talk about, as well as these titles like League of Legends Mobile and Apex Legends Mobile coming out, and Teamfight Tactics, and like there's so many games that are due to come out next year, and it's just all part of that growth of this industry. It's just going to continue really ramping up from here on out.
Yeah, that was a hefty lineup of those three right there. Do you know any more off the top of your head, or I mean, that three right there, that's enough to
chat can definitely inform us about ones that I'm missing here, but there's a ton of titles that are about to launch.
Wild Rift, does that ring a bell?
Yeah, League of Legends for sure.
Okay, I don't know anything about League of Legends. So is that like literally like the same game, League of Legends, but on your phone, or is it like a whole different game?
Yeah, they are tuning it a bit for the mobile platform, which I haven't personally played it myself. People that have are saying that the controls are actually really kind of innovative because of that. So really looking forward to being able to get my hands on that personally. But yeah, so that is a bit different. It's not exactly the same game experience, but obviously when you have a publisher like Riot behind that, like they know how to run an esport, you know.
Yeah, they know a thing or two, that's for sure. Would cloud gaming be the future? Do you see that question from Quentin?
To me, I think that platform agnostic games are definitely the future. But at the same time, I mean, you could say that, but then there's also still a market and a strategy to have just a mobile specific title, right? Like a Clash Royale. But it seems like, that's something that's definitely growing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Armajet, another great example of platform agnostic title.
All right. Sorry if you're listening to the silence right now. We're both reading the chat, trying to pull some questions. So it's not just this awkward silence for you, those of you guys listening on Spotify or whatever.
We're here for the people. We want to give you what you want.
I don't remember if I asked you this earlier or not. Maybe I did. I don't know. I'm like blacking out right now. Do you think that like there's gonna be some banger games coming up that are gonna be like the next few big mobile games or whatever? You think they're gonna be like shooters? Did I ask you that, or like card games? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you did ask that. I didn't answer that directly. Let's see. So to answer that, in my opinion, a mobile game needs three things to succeed. It needs, first of all, to be a good game for a casual player, because at the end of the day, you've got to have downloads and eyeballs that are going to drive and fuel this whole ecosystem, right? So you have to be able to be a good game for casual players. On the esports side, though, you need to have a good competitive environment, right? So it needs to have a skill curve so that competitive players can progress and get better. And you need to have engaging gameplay and stuff like that. So it has to be a good game for competition. But then there is this third category that it's kind of just like this X factor, right? Because there's more good games now than ever before. Like, what is actually going to inspire you to download this game and play it and invest so much time and energy into it versus all the other amazing games that are out there, right? And there's a couple ways that a game could check that off. You have a title like Call of Duty Mobile, which is leveraging one of the biggest IPs in the West, and that game is just really taken off. A game like Brawl Stars, which in my opinion was the best example of being able to leverage the existing player base of a franchise. So like, as an example, when Brawl Stars was launched, they integrated into Clash Royale with a Brawl Stars themed game mode that introduced you to a couple characters that you can then download Brawl Stars and play. So it was like they're really trying to almost like cannibalize their own players in order to make that game a success. Because I think Supercell knows that mobile gamers also often play multiple titles, and that's especially true for the Supercell suite. Like people that play Clash Royale also play Clash of Clans and also play Brawl Stars, right? And so Supercell's got this really interesting perspective of how can we increase like the long-term value of a player of the Supercell suite of games. You know what I mean? And so Brawl Stars is kind of just like new content in that long-term plan for that gamer. So that's really fascinating to me. But there's so many different ways you can check off that X Factor box, right? But at the end of the day, you got to have something. You got to have something to set yourself apart.
So going, kind of bouncing off this a little bit too, with Supercell, like what was that? Probably a few months ago now, they released Rush Wars and then they canceled it shortly after. That was super interesting because I'm sure a ton of resources went into, developing that and releasing it and promoting it. And then probably about a month into the beta, they just shut it down. Like that was super interesting to me. That
was savage.
It must have really flopped. Like, holy yikes. They must have got some serious reviews. And then that also shows that they didn't think that it was even like savable, like just to completely...
Well, that's the thing, is that it could have launched and it probably could have done okay. but Supercell just has such a high standard for what they want to put out into the public. And that commitment to excellence is something I think is really admirable, that you will spend so much time, because they spend a ton of time and resources, beta testing and just, behind closed doors, and, working on the artwork and the style of a game. Like when they announce that they're launching something like Rush Wars, you better believe that like they've got something they want to test out.
Right.
But then, they don't want to even, compromise at all. Like they want to put out winning games, like ones that are just going to be at the top of the charts and people can just play and love for a long, long time. Like Clash of Clans has been around now for 7 years, and they just reinvigorated that game with a new game mode a couple of years ago, right? So, like they have also a great skill for keeping games alive for a long time and interesting, and increasing the longevity of it that a lot of publishers, haven't quite figured out. So many interesting things. I don't know. I could go on a lot of.
That's a recent. Well, I don't know how recent it is, but like this trend of like games, their lifespan is like so much longer. Like I don't know, 5-10 years ago, it would be like a 1-year life cycle. Like Call of Duty was a perfect example. Like it was like a 1-year life cycle. A month before Christmas, the new Call of Duty would come out, and the previous one would die. That you don't see that anymore. Now it's games are last like. Like GTA, when that had like a huge comeback, Minecraft is still massive. Like, there's so many examples. The Counter-Strike Go, that's been out for how many years, and it's still huge. Like, there's so many games that are just like lasting forever. It's like insane to me. So I don't even know if. So do you? Here, I'm going to turn this into a question. Do you think that that's going to be the trend where there's going to be games are going to come out less frequently and they're going to have a longer lifespan because they're going to be continually updated to feel fresh? I feel like that's kind of almost guaranteed.
Yeah.
But if you just want to like give your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, so that's a phenomenal question. There was a great article about that by, I believe it was Andreessen Horowitz, about how games are changing. And basically, like the old school model for releasing a game was kind of exactly like you're talking about. You spend so much time, building and building and building and building this game, and then it's released. And it's a one-time purchase, and then you play the game through and you complete it and you're done. and that's just not how games are anymore.
No.
Games are just like this living thing, and they're continually updated with new content to keep people engaged. And the way that people are consuming those games also is different, because you're not just playing it so that you can complete it, right? Like in Clash Royale, it's not like you're ever going to reach the end of Clash Royale, right? Like the way that you would a campaign mode in a PvE game or something, like, or whatever it is, right? So it's totally different. It's now kind of just being more of a social thing for people, right? You're not just playing a game as a form of entertainment. You're playing it oftentimes because also you have friends in your clan and you just kind of want to check in with them and hang out and play some games together. And there's some awesome developments recently to try to even emphasize that and bring that out. I think we had one of the people in the chat earlier, Sui Generis, with Game Gather. He's kind of build an awesome way to help people socialize as they're playing. And there was also a company called Bunch that raised a lot of money from Supercell, Tencent, and Riot as a group, which is very fascinating to me. But they have a similar concept where they're like a voice hangout app that you kind of get together and socialize with people as you're playing. And also Epic Games acquired a company called House Party. And that is super fascinating to me. So yeah, like the way that games are played is even totally different now. It's so much more social and interactive, and less so much about completion.
Yeah. Okay. So I have two questions here. Quick hot take. Do you think mobile games will ever add like a in-game voice chat, like how like Call of Duty and stuff has?
I mean, so if people want to use platforms like Bunch and Game Gather, which are these external apps for voice chat and hanging out and stuff to form groups, naturally things are going to trend toward in-app, in my opinion, just because games themselves are becoming more robust and they're more like games as a service or a platform where things could be integrated into, but like the hub is becoming the game at the end of the day. So I think that's something that is certainly likely.
Okay. And then the second one is, I've noticed, I've seen stuff on Twitter too, like this isn't my original organic thought, but there's a lot of game developers, they're trending towards like multiplayer games, just because there's so much revenue there, as opposed to like single player campaign based games. So there's that massive shift, which I don't really see reversing. There's no reason to reverse it. So do you see the same thing? And do you have any insight, like extra insight into, is that going to be like a continuing trend where it's just like only multiplayer games come out just because there's so much more money there than the single player games or something like that?
At the end of the day, like the social aspect of it is such a big motivation for gamers nowadays. So even in those campaign type, PvE type of games, like as long as there's a social part of it, they can still perhaps fill that motivation and that need for the player. But at the end of the day, I think leaning into things that players want is generally a pretty good thing.
Yeah, that is the simplest way to put it. You're right. Okay, there's a long message in the chat here that I can't read. I'm sorry, Coach Try. Do you think it's the game itself? Okay, I don't know how closely you've been monitoring the chat. I'm trying to keep up with it. I'm so bad at talking and reading at the same time. I just can't do it. So chat, I'm trying my very best to get your questions. But I think we covered like a lot of this stuff in some way, shape, or form. Okay. Well, if you see anything that jumps out at you, cool. If not,
let me check Twitter one more time, just because we had a ton of great questions on there.
Yeah, good call. I want to make sure we hit all of those, or at least most of them in some way. I don't know if we directly hit all of them, but I know that for a fact we touched on a lot of different topics here in some way, shape, or form that I think answered, at least partially, some of the questions.
Yeah, we did pretty good, man.
Okay, I'm seeing one. Are you seeing the one from Elizabeth?
Let's see. Let me find out. What does that one say?
What are the essential fundamental building blocks for developing a successful mobile scene in terms of infrastructure, resources, funding, etc.? It's a two-part question. And then 2 was, how similar/different are mobile esports scenes from PC esports scenes? What can mobile esports learn from PC esports? So there's a whole lot, there's a whole lot to answer there.
Yeah, because it's asking a really, fundamental question to the industry, right? So it's a loaded question. I think, so what are the fundamental building blocks for a successful mobile esports scene? I kind of talked about how I look for 3 things. It's got to be good for casuals, good for competition, and then have an X factor in order to get to a point where you can have, successful esports. We talked about how the casual aspect of the broader player base can sometimes impact things, right? And I also want to make a distinction that it's not necessarily an impact in a bad way. It's again just kind of product market fit and making sure that we can grow this for everybody, right? And so that's certainly part of the infrastructure, is how can we set up systems or things that get the player base down this path of engagement and get them coming back and excited about esports. So one example of that would be Fantasy Royale, which is a great software feature for Clash Royale. It's basically, for those of you that aren't familiar with it exactly, it's just like fantasy sports, but for the Clash Royale esport, and it's actually integrated into the game itself. So anybody that is a Clash Royale player will receive a notification when it becomes available, and you can create your roster and select players. You get points based on how many crowns they take down, basically. So that is really cool. That's an awesome way for people to also begin rooting for players, right? Because it's like they start identifying with them. It's like, man, that's my guy up there on the stage playing. So I think that things like that are really, really great to lean into, as well as how can we really get the average player excited about the game or about the esport, and really identify and start to learn about player brands. Exactly. So
yeah, no, I think that's a huge portion of really building anything is getting that player, like it's got to be like a combined effort between the game itself and the players to, because when the game builds the player identities, that helps the game, because then people connect with the players and they follow the players on social media, and if they follow the players on social media, they're constantly seeing the game in their feeds, and it's just it they work together, right? So it's building that is absolutely massive for any game, really.
One of the biggest lessons I learned this year, which is again, I'm just so appreciative that you had me on to kind of dump some knowledge here about 2019. But esports, at the end of the day, has just got to be part of a holistic strategy for the game, because there's so many things that overlap as far as competition and casual content, and how the average player finds it and what's interesting to them. It's just got to be part of a holistic strategy, and that holistic strategy has got to be uniquely designed for each game. You can't just host a $1 million event and just expect that your esports team is going to take off. It definitely helps.
That helps a lot. Yeah.
At the end of the day, what are you going to do with that afterwards, right? So it's got to be part of a holistic strategy, and it's so nuanced, and there's so many different angles and sides to it. But man, this industry is something else, man.
I know, it's gonna be interesting. I can't wait till like 5-10 years from now, look back at this exact VOD and just see how it played out. Just be like, we were fucking spot on, because I know we're obviously we don't make everything we said here is gonna be correct.
Oh man,
that's gonna be exciting.
Look back at this, I'm sure, and be like, man, why did I say that?
Yeah, we're gonna be cringing. We're gonna be like, fuck, I was idiot.
That's what I try to always say, like at the beginning, like, I'm not an expert. You know what I mean? Like, all I can do is learn, try to keep my eyes open about what's out there, and just try to make some guesses about why things are.
Educated guesses.
This is constantly evolving, man. You can't stand still in this industry.
No, that's huge facts. All right, so let's just do like one more question here. I don't know how educated you are on 5G. I'm not very educated. If you want to, I don't know how much you can speak on this, but how does that impact mobile gaming, if at all?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, 5G coming out and just increasing the connection speed and the ability of what you can do on your phone, right, is going to unlock a ton of value for mobile esports and mobile gaming. So one of the reasons why mobile esports took off in India, and there's a lot of reasons, but one of them is that a really sustainable network was scaled across the country for connection speeds, and that really allowed people for the first time to basically play a game on their phone and connect to it and maintain connection and watch YouTube videos, and that what's been happening in that region is just so inspiring because of it. And obviously, in a country like the United States, we have 4G, and that's already pretty great. But to the extent that we're able to get 5G, which is going to be just significantly faster, what that means is that, hey, you know what? Now you can also stream and play at the same time and not drop connection. Hey, now you can basically, consume any type of content. You can, watch a stream, or, do anything as if you were on Wi-Fi, and you know what? It's going to be okay. So I'm not a game developer, but I would definitely expect that being able to upload and download more data per second will allow for more exciting things to be implemented into the game, and more robust things. So it's going to be really incredible. Yeah, I'm very, very excited for 5G.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not an expert in this by any means, but it could be a little bit, from what I understand, it's a little misleading, because 4G to 5G, it seems like, the next logical step in succession, but apparently, like, I've heard, like, it's like a fucking leap. Like 4G to 5G, it's a big deal. And I don't think a lot of people, myself included, really understand the impact that it's going to have gaming and just outside of gaming. Like, it's a beast of a thing that's going to open up a lot of doors, apparently. So I need to do some, I'm talking out loud right now, I need to do some more research into this, and stay ahead of the curve to see how I can leverage that appropriately.
Definitely. And obviously, like, things like that are probably going to take some time to roll out,
of course, and
be implemented across, the whole country or the whole world, of course. But yeah, so one other note I'll say on this is somewhat related, but I think it's an important point to bring up, is that there have been some regions where connection speed has not been very great. And what's happened in those regions is that live streaming hasn't really, taken off as much, because you don't have the connection speed to watch a live stream. But what you can do is you can click on a YouTube video, pause it, and then no matter what your connection speed is, you can just wait for it to load, and then you can watch it. So one thing that will obviously help for is live streaming consumption also as well. But,
yeah, no, that is a good point. That's something that like I don't think most people would think of, myself included. So that's a good point. And there's a million of those little circumstances that that go into this basket that is just gonna beef up everything. Yeah. So it's super exciting times. So I think that we started on super exciting times, and now here we're gonna wrap it up. It's super exciting times. Before we really close it out here, I just want to make sure one more time that you had a chance to spew out everything, all the knowledge that you want the people to know about. Oh my goodness.
Oh man,
I'm sure that you could go on for 10 hours here, but I just want to make sure we hit all the main points, educate the people on what's going on.
I think we had a really great podcast, man. At least I hope so. But
no, this was heat. This was straight fire. And if anybody thinks otherwise, you're wrong. Well, if they made it this far, and they probably like it, because I mean we are how far are we in? Hour and 30 minutes or so in. So
are we really? Wow. Man.
Yeah, it was a beefy one, and I'm sure we could keep rolling. But I gotta get some sleep for one.
Same.
East Coast time zone.
I'm taking off tomorrow morning to fly down for the holidays, and a couple days later I'm flying out to Thailand. So I am so due for a vacation. I've been working just overtime.
I know, especially with that Clash Contender thing going on. I'm sure you average in like 20 minutes of sleep a night. So I get it. That's nice sweet.
Podcast. I'm ready for vacation. But man, just so appreciate you having me on here. This has been a blast for me. There's few things I enjoy more to really talk about exciting mobile esports topics with somebody that's in the scene here.
I love geeking out about this stuff. Oh my god, because there's not many people, like I don't have any friends in real life that are as big of nerds as I am. And I say nerds, like nerds is a good thing. I embrace the nerd title. Some people like when you call them a nerd, they're like, I'm not a nerd, and all they do is game all day, and it's like, dude, you're a nerd. But like I embrace the title nerd. And I love nerding out. That's all there is to it. I'm a nerd and I like to nerd out. So doing this was a ton of fun. So this was a banger of an episode. I can already tell. I think a lot of people are going to learn a lot of things. I think it's going to be super interesting, especially for the people that aren't as in the trenches as we are. So this is going to be super good, and I think that was the objective here. And I think we fucking hit the home run. So I think it's going to be good. I'm sure we're going to get a ton of positive feedback. But yeah, I think this is a good place to wrap it up for now. So I'm sure in the future we can, if there's any developments, we can have you back on here. Maybe do like a multiple guest podcast. If there's something like that, I'd love to have you back on here at some point, just to really just chop it up again, because this was a good time.
Anytime you need me, I'm up to come on and nerd out with you. So
good shit. Yes, nerding out, embracing it. I love it. Okay, so let's wrap it up there. MobileMatt at the MobileMatt on Twitter, correct? That's it. Yes. Mm-hmm. And then if you want to shout out any, where could the people find you? Is Twitter the best spot?
Yeah, Twitter's definitely the best spot. I got my own personal goals for 2020, and one of those is to start putting out some more content myself. So fingers crossed that means I have some time to do some YouTube stuff. So I may be hitting you up for tech advice and stuff, Rozay. But
oh god, I haven't figured out YouTube yet. That's still a mystery for me. Right. I'm working on it,
I'll
but
at least have you on as a guest. So.
Yes, no, please do. I would love to do that. YouTube's still. Oh god, I'm trying. I'm trying, but I don't have it. I don't have the fundamental understanding that I need to yet that I do on other platforms. But we're getting there. We're headed in the right direction.
Absolutely. But Twitter's definitely the best spot at the MobileMatt, and then you can feel free to reach out to me at any time on email if you want. Matt at mobileesportslab.com. That's also in my Twitter profile. So, but yeah, man, this has been an absolute blast. Thanks for making it happen.
Anytime. All right, there you go. Be sure to stay connected with Matt and myself at RozayGG. Feel free to tweet us with any feedback you may have, any follow-up questions if we didn't have a chance to answer. We love talking about this stuff, so hit us up anytime with anything you want to know or just dig into, or whatever the case may be. So that's it for this one. Thank you guys for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, and then drop a comment on who you want to see on next. All right, thank you for listening, guys, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace. Nailed it. Nailed it. That was a good episode. God damn, dude. An hour and a half just flies by when you're geeking.
When you told me that, I couldn't believe you. That was crazy.
I know.